Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Israel is a European Western settler colony. In today's episode, we ask the question, if the Zionist settlers currently living in Israel are supposed to be Semitic, then why doesn't Israeli Hebrew sound Semitic at all?
אנחנו לא נוכל לחיות בארץ הזאת עם אסלאם או נאצי אחד שכזה נשאר בעזה.
So Arabic and Hebrew are meant to be Semitic languages. So why does Israeli Hebrew not sound Semitic at all? Any guesses? Do you think because it wasn't created by someone who was Semitic? Yes, I said created. Let's get into it. So modern Hebrew or Israeli Hebrew has only been around for around 150 years or so. Before that, ancient Hebrew or biblical Hebrew was a non-spoken language for around 2,000 years. It was mostly used liturgically, so for prayer and for sacred texts, and sometimes in poetry or literature, but it was not spoken at all. In fact, the Talmud was not even written in Hebrew. It was written in Aramaic. So when was Hebrew revived to what we hear today? So the revival of Hebrew as a spoken language is largely attributed to a Russian dude named Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman. He was an Ashkenazi Jewish linguist, and he was obsessed with this idea of reviving Hebrew as a spoken language. Now, his native language was Yiddish, as was the language of most Central and Eastern European Jewish folks at the time. And so what he did is he took the Sephardic Jewish pronunciation, and of course he overlaid that with the European pronunciations, heavily influenced by Yiddish, Russian, Polish, and German. And so because of that, for instance, Israeli Hebrew doesn't roll their R's like Semitic languages do. So they don't say ra, they say ra. For instance, like Israel, right? And so that's why they sound more German, for instance, when they say hummus instead of hummus. Another example is they don't have the Semitic sound ah. Instead, they have to say ah, because they don't know how to say ah. So instead of saying aliyah, they say aliyah. And so that's why the accent sounds so flat as opposed to Arabic-based dialects or ancient Hebrew. So how did Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman, who later changed his name to Eliezer ben Yehuda, of course, how did he accomplish this? This ben Yehuda guy was so fanatical that when he finally got a son named Itamar, he completely forbade him to speak any other language other than Hebrew. And in fact, he forbade him to speak to any other children, even when his mom was singing him a Russian lullaby, got berated by ben Yehuda for ever speaking to him or singing to him in any other language other than Hebrew. He was completely fanatical. And so his son, Itmar ben Yehuda, is known as the first native speaker of modern Israeli Hebrew. And by the way, this whole idea of Hebrew becoming a spoken language was actually frowned upon by the Orthodox and devout Jewish community, because to them, Hebrew was meant to be for prayer and sacred ceremonies. It wasn't meant to be used in everyday mundane contexts. It was meant to be something higher and holy. And also, the Jewish people who already lived in Palestine and had been for centuries spoke Arabic. That was their lingua franca. That's what they spoke all together. The Jewish people, the Christian people, the Muslim people, they all spoke Arabic together. But in the end, of course, because of the Zionist movement, this whole idea of having a specific language for this Jewish-only state was very, very enticing. And so in 1922, Britain declared modern Israeli Hebrew one of the three languages of the land, including Arabic and including English. And by the way, you know the song Hava Nagila? You wouldn't be faulted for thinking that this was a centuries and centuries old song that has been passed down. In fact, the song we know today was Hebrewized and lyricized only in 1918. And why was it so? It was a song of rejoicing by the Zionist movement after the Ottoman Empire fell, and when Britain promised, through the Balfour Declaration, the Zionist movement the land of Palestine. And to end this, there's no real way of knowing what ancient Hebrew or biblical Hebrew really sounded like, but there are some beautiful indications of what it might have sounded like when we hear Yemenite Hebrew. I'll leave you with this.